Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of What If Starscreams clones turned good. So without further ado, let's get right to it. So we start this part off with the Autobots as they prepare for their relic hunts. They hear footsteps walk up to them as the clones walk into the room, looking different with new paint jobs. And Optimus smiles at the sight of that the clones are even willing to show that they are straying away from Starscream's path. And one of them steps forward and says, Optimus Prime, in order to show that we are walking new paths, we have chosen new color schemes as you see, and new names. Optimus is then like, do tell? Wingstorm, Turbo, Orbit, Voltage, Recon. As to which Optimus is like, perfect. I know you five will do well under these new identities you have chosen for yourselves. So with that being said, I will choose the teams to split off and gather these relics. So Bumblebee and RC are the same team, whom will head into the tunnels. But with Agent Fowler still good since he wasn't shot by the warship, he goes instead of the humans. Bulkhead and Wheeljack will be heading to the Volcano region. Orbit, Voltage, and Recon will head to the foresty region, and Wingstorm and Turbo will accompany Optimus Prime to the Arctic. So the episode Tunnel Vision, plot-wise, goes exactly the same way. They still get the phase shifter, except they aren't discovered by any humans, due to Agent Fowler being there and him able to keep back all the humans. The only thing I could really imagine them doing is having a conversation about the clones joining, where RC isn't really too certain about the whole thing. Like, she is happy that the original Starscream is dead and Cliffjumper's basically avenged, but she can't help but feel that this is just a much bigger deception because at the end of the day, they are still Starscream clones. And Bumblebee does reassure her that the clones mean well. And if we offer them the opportunity to change, they could. If Optimus Prime has a good feeling about this, we should too. And that conversation more or less ends off with RC just saying, I guess you're right. They deserve a chance. And maybe Fowler would chime into the conversation. Like, they may have the shell and body of Starscream, but that doesn't count who they are on the inside. I don't know, some wise words. So now we get the Bulkhead and Wheeljack, whom Groundbridge in to the Volcano region. And as they journey up to where the toxin is, Wheeljack is kinda quiet and Bulkhead says, Yo Jackie, you alright? You've been a little quiet. And Wheeljack says, yeah, just not really one for these Starscream clothes or whatever joining the cause. Especially since, Starscream captured me and tried to replace me with an agent to get rid of y'all. And Bulkhead says that may be true, but the clones killed him. And heck, they even helped save me. That's at least a point for me. Eventually, they reach the toxin, to which they're both at shock to what they see. And Wheeljack is like, so, how are we going to contain this thing back at base? And Bulkhead's like, we can't leave it here either, or else the cons will get their hands on it. We need to destroy it. And then, he looks at the volcano. Wheeljack then takes out his blaster. Bulkhead, duck! Bulkhead ducks, however, Hardshell rams at Wheeljack instead. And in his bug alt mode, he flies up with Wheeljack into the sky, but Wheeljack stabs him in his insect mode eye, which causes him to crash down. However, Hardshell does gain the advantage by them landing down and him using Wheeljack to cushion his fall. And then he picks up Wheeljack, ready to terminate him. And no, they are already at the volcano when they landed, so Hardshell hears someone, hey! And Bulkhead shoves the toxin into his throat. And Hardshell's kinda left suffocating there. Two other Insecticon drones show up to fight Bulkhead and Wheeljack. And amidst the chaos, Hardshell manages to throw the toxin out of his throat aside. Bulkhead and Wheeljack manage to kill off those two Insecticon drones. They're both very weak, but they're still trying to keep up, and Wheeljack takes out his blaster at Hardshell. Bulkhead throws the toxin at Hardshell, and Wheeljack opens fire on it, which destroys it, and causes Hardshell to lose his eyesight and fall into the volcano. And the two call Ratchet for a Groundbridge home, very weakened, however celebrating on their victory. But Hardshell climbs out of the volcano, and somewhat still able to see, but slowly not being able to at the same time, he shoots at the ground bridge, killing one of the Autobots. So now we cut to the 3 Starscream clones, now known as Orbit, Voltage, and Recon, who fly in to the location of one of the relics. However, someone follows in the distance, Soundwave. To which the clones decide on a move. 2 of them will stay and fight Soundwave, while the other heads for the relic. So Orbit and Recon stay back to fight Soundwave, while Recon goes ahead to go after the relic. Laserbeak is ejected to pursue Recon. Soundwave is pursuing Orbit and Recon in the air, but the 2 clones transform and fire their weapons at Soundwave, but Soundwave dodges them quickly, transforming, using his tentacles and knocking them both down to the ground. And then we get to Recon, who at last reaches the relic and is digging it out, but Laserbeak shoots him, which begins kinda overwhelming Recon. But Recon very quickly picks up the resonance blaster and blasts at Laserbeak. Meanwhile, we get to the other 3 who are fighting on the ground. And very quickly, because it's Starscream and there's 2 of them, which are the clones, they very quickly start getting an advantage on Soundwave. Voltage gains his attention while Orbit fires a rocket which hits Soundwave and mortally wounds him, but it makes his visor fall apart, revealing his face, and we see him upset. Meanwhile, back at the fight for the relic, Recon uses the power of the resonance blaster, blasting Laserbeak, which ends the life of the Minicon. And Soundwave senses that his Minicon is dead. And just as Orbit and Voltage charge at him, prepared to finish him off. In a last-ditch effort, he plays something. An old recording of Starscream.
I have gained a clear understanding of my place in this universe. Of who I am. Of who I was always meant to be. Starscream, second in command. Humble servant to Lord Megatron.
As sort of a last effort to warp the clones back to the Decepticons. But the clones look at each other. We are not Starscream. Stop comparing us to him. We are our own bots now. We have selected our own destinies. And then they kick Soundwave to the side as they're about to finish Soundwave off. And then Soundwave just transforms and leaves. To which Recon returns with the resonance blaster, and he sees his brothers a little strange. Is everything alright? The 2 explain to him what happened. Voltage then says, but Soundwave escaped before we could finish him off. Orbit is like, termination doesn't matter. What matters is what we got, what we came for. Now, let us return to Optimus Prime and our Autobot allies. And the last team is Optimus Prime, Turbo, and Wingstorm. So we see Optimus Prime driving through the icy region, and Wingstorm and Turbo fly above him nearby in their jet forms. Turbo begins trying to locate the relic, but something hits him. Dreadwing at full speed rams him, transforms mid-air, and fights Wingstorm. Optimus transforms and fires up at Dreadwing. Dreadwing gets upset, knocks Wingstorm to the side, and goes down and fights Optimus Prime with his sword. Wingstorm goes to Turbo and helps him up, and Turbo says, Skyquake? I thought he was dead. And Wingstorm says, I don't know who that is, but you go get the relic. I'll help Optimus Prime. As to which Wingstorm remains to help Optimus Prime deal with Dreadwing, and so he rams in, knocking Dreadwing down. As to which Wingstorm actually grabs Dreadwing's blade and uses it and tries to charge at Dreadwing, but Dreadwing takes out his blaster, and Wingstorm is actually doing pretty well with the sword. He uses it to deflect the shots off the gun. But he does take out another sword and clashes it along with Wingstorm's, using his old sword. Dreadwing is upset, knowing this is just a distraction while that other clone gets the relic. But he's even more surprised and shocked when he sees that Starscream clone return with the relic and seeing which relic it is. The Apex armor. To which upon that distraction, Dreadwing is taken down to the ground by Wingstorm. And Optimus is like, Dreadwing, do you yield? To which Dreadwing is then like, very well. As to which Turbo, the Starscream clone in the Apex armor, pulls him up and is about to cuff him. But Dreadwing very quickly activates his bombs around the area and uses that opportunity to escape. So Wingstorm uses his upper body strength as Turbo is in the Apex armor, and he uses his flight strength to keep Turbo from going under the ice. And Optimus Prime does manage to get away from the explosion on time. And later on, with the relic successfully in the Autobot hands, Optimus calls to Wingstorm and Turbo, "Now it is time to return to base. And well done, you two. You have done well today. Let us hope your brothers and our fellow Autobots have the same news." And as they return to base with the Apex armor, all of their eyes widen, especially Optimus Prime, as Wheeljack is the one to be revealed dead and placed on a table to rest away. And Bulkhead is sitting on a recovery table sad, with Miko by his side, also sad. And eventually back at the warship, Megatron is enraged, reviewing all of his Decepticons' progress on the relic hunt missions. All a failure till he reaches Hardshell. "Report. The toxin was destroyed. However, I can confirm that one of the wreckers is terminated by my weapon. Then perhaps this day is not as lost as we think after all. Knockout, get Hardshell's eye repaired, and our next plan shall be enacted in time." Meanwhile, at the Autobot base Hangar E, Wheeljack is placed in a metal tomb right next to Cliffjumper to rest. On this day, we bid farewell to another Autobot, a friend, Wheeljack. However, we shall avenge his death, and soon end this war once and for all. And the last thing we see is the clones as they actually feel remorse and sad about Wheeljack's passing. And in unity, they all say, "Till all are one, Wheeljack." And that's where I'm going to leave it off here, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed part 2, and I'll see you guys in part 3.